Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Moms. This is Dorothy Pilarski, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you signing on today. We have an incredible guest, Leila Lawler, and I'll introduce her in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes. Just a little bit about Midday Moms. We are the sister to the website, CatholicMomsGroup.com, three words, CatholicMomsGroup.com. We are faith partners with the Archdiocese of Toronto, and we are on a mission to revive the vocation of motherhood. And we do so primarily by helping parishes start Catholic moms groups. I want to just shout out and say hello to all of the mothers group leaders that are joining us today. And I usually play our little short ministry video, but I've got this new webcam and I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to refrain. I'm going to refrain from actually sharing that video today. Now, Leila is the author of a number of books. The one that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to get my weightlifting in, is a collection of books under the title The Summa Domestica. And it is a thoughtful and countercultural look at faith, family, life, and the home as a domestic church. Leila writes with honesty, with wit, with deep conviction about motherhood, homemaking, and the formative work that happens within the walls of a home. Her work invites us to rethink vocation, to rethink dignity. It's one of my favorite words. My kids are always like, "Mom, enough about dignity, dignity and duties." They're like, "Dorothy, Mom, I'm 30 now." And I'm like, "Well, you still have duties." Anyway, and what holiness can look like in ordinary everyday life. I'm thrilled to have her here. Help me, all of you, welcome Leila Lawler. So, Leila, for those who might be new to the Summa Domestica and might be new to your work, before we get into the work itself, like one would assume in looking at your book and reading some of the blog posts about your work, that you have like no idea about what it means to come from a fractured background, or that you live, like sometimes people say, well, Dorothy, like you just live in La La Land, you have no idea. Tell us a little bit about your background, maybe that most people might not know.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I get it a lot that people will say, well, you just don't understand what it's like for young women today. And I have to laugh because I realize now I have a lot of gray hair. Um, but and it's funny because the same women are kind of wishing that older women would help them. And so I kind of stepped in to the whole blogging world and everything. We can get into that later because I was a little bit like, these women are very young and they like, I kind of have been through some things. But
Mhm.
what they don't realize is that I think a lot of the time is that no, I did not have any kind of the wholesome peaceful background, the good Catholic family, anything like that. My parents were not Christian. My mother was, I call her a fallen away Methodist. She did end up converting to Catholicism, and she then, became a very good Catholic and died a very holy death. But my father was Muslim. He was from Egypt, and he was Muslim. And my parents divorced when I was 3. I had an extremely unhappy childhood in a tumultuous time. I was a child in New Haven, Connecticut, and I have memories of riots there. Um, I went to a very progressive public school, was exposed to all sorts of educational experiments. I was definitely surrounded by feminists. I think I started subscribing to Ms. Magazine when it first came out. So at the age of 15, I was reading Ms. Magazine. I definitely was considered myself to be, kind of radical. And it's only through the grace of God, um, the I would say in large part, certain particular memories that I have um, of of the Catholic Church, very little memories, mostly the reading that I did and the education that I had, which subsequently was destroyed, like the fact that there were really good books that I was able to read, and then meeting my then, future husband who was um who did have a very calm, good childhood with Catholic parents who had left the church and was coming back when I met him. And so those, God used those circumstances, but he also used the difficulties of my childhood and upbringing to make it so that I do understand what people are struggling with. I do. And not only that, but when we were married, um, after some years, we actually had a lot of financial difficulties. So I am very familiar. I had one reader say to me, that, I don't know how old she thought I was, but she said, I don't understand. Lila doesn't understand that women today have mortgages. And I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I have a mortgage. I don't know. So just all I want to say is I do get it. So anyway, that's a little snippet of my background.
And so tell us a little bit, like for maybe there are moms here that have never heard of the Summa Domestica. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what one would expect? Like, when you purchase the set, what's in the Summa Domestica?
So the Summa Domestica, which the title is the Summa Domestica, Order and Wonder in Family Life. And that title came to me kind of as a joke. Somebody, when I was saying I was going to write a book, they said, well, whoever it was said to me, well, what is the name of it? And I said, it's going to be like the Summa Domestica. So, after Thomas Aquinas's Summa Theologiae, and which is a very systematic approach to philosophy and theology, which my book is not, even in the domestic realm. However, it is, it is to the best of my ability, kind of my, you know, sort of what I would tell the young me. And because I had had the blog, Like Mother, Like Daughter, that actually one of my daughters started in 2007. So it's getting to be almost 20 years ago. And that was in the days when blogging was something, it wasn't super monetized the way it became. It really was just young moms, the mommy blog sphere was just young moms just posting once in a while about the things that they were thinking or doing. And it really was a young mother's thing. And in 2007, I have seven children, and at the time, my youngest was around 9 years old. And so she was 10, I guess. And so I was a little more free. I had some children who were out of college, I had some in college. Um, the next older child is 6 years older, so I did have some free time that I simply had not had before. Nor were there blogs, thank goodness, because I really appreciate the fact that my formative years were spent without any, obviously there wasn't an internet. But I started to, at first we had the blog. It was kind of like our way of sharing some, the things that you want your faraway daughters to know, like, oh, I went to the thrift store and this is what I found. And then I painted it and put these little handles on it. And isn't it cute? But then as I became more familiar with what people were saying, on the internet about their creative things, but also how they balanced um, their children with their creativity, like taking care of their home. And they were so young, and I was at a much different stage. And I started to realize, uh-oh, like people are starting to make the same mistakes that were things that I had to struggle with as a young mom. And I kind of went through it, and I kind of started to get this feeling of they need to not reinvent the wheel, or at least I should share the things that I have learned because I learned them at great cost. I was very lonely. Where I lived when we first got married, we lived in Washington, D.C., and I can tell you that every woman who was at our church, every woman I encountered who was anywhere around my age with kids my age, my kids were very, very little, they worked. And so when I went to the playground, there were no moms there. There were lots of nannies. There were no moms. And so I was very lonely. I knew I wanted to be home with my children. I did not know how to keep my house. I did not know how to um, make meals in a frugal way. I did not know what we needed to live on one income. And I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have friends to talk to. My mother she was a working mom. She was a good housekeeper and everything, but she wasn't systematic, and she kind of raised me in that way that I think a lot of women to this day are raised of, just like, oh, she should do what she wants, and I'm not going to inflict these things on her, and very permissively in a lot of ways. And so I really didn't have skills. But the other thing was homeschooling was starting to be, well, when my kids were little, nobody homeschooled. But my husband said to me when it got to be the, age of our eldest son, like 4 or 5, and I started to say, well, where, I wonder I should go see about like where he's going to go to school. And my husband's just like, well, why should he go to school? He doesn't need to go to school. I mean, this is my husband who went to Harvard, and I'm kind of like, what do you mean? What do you mean he doesn't have to go to school? And
Are
for
you
me, I
kidding
kind of felt, are
me?
you kidding? And I kind of felt like, well, actually, I do want him to go to school because I need to meet other women. Like, I need to be in a community. I didn't even know how to say it to myself that way, but that was like, I think, my feeling. But anyway, we did start sending our kids to school, and immediately I could see that that wasn't the best. It wasn't fitting with ideas that I already had about how I wanted my children to learn. But anyway, fast forwarding to this time I'm telling you about with the blog, a lot of by 2000, the mid 2000s, many more people were homeschooling. And I was like, oh my goodness, they just don't know what is in front of them. Like they have really little kids. I have now been homeschooling for, 15 years at least. They really don't know what they're gonna need to do this. And so that's why I started writing. And when I started writing on my blog, in the back of my mind, I was thinking this could kind of be, maybe when I write a post, it could kind of be like a draft for a chapter in a book or something. But that will never happen because I mean that would take so long, and I don't really know that I have the ability to follow through on that, and whatever, I'll just write whatever occurs to me. Well, about 10 years later, a reader said to me, you should put all this into a book. And I was just like, well, no, that's not going to happen. I've just been flinging things out there. It's not organized. It's not systematic. And P.S., I had noticed a lot of books coming out that were just like blog posts thrown into a book. And I have really high standards. So I just did not want to do that. And people were really saying to me, like, all you have to do is print them out and put them in a book. And I was like, oh no, that is not going to happen.
Okay,
So anyway,
so the book, just to kind of recap for some of the listeners here. So the book was, so you had this kind of notion that you wanted to pass down wisdom to younger moms so that they wouldn't make some of the same mistakes when it comes to managing
All the things, everything.
homes.
And before I forgot, that's the other thing. Like, what if I forget? My youngest child is 10. What if I forget what it's like to be nursing a baby when you're also trying to homeschool? Like, in one way, I feel unqualified, but in another way, I better put it down before I forget. And so then by the time that it got to be, I started to think seriously, maybe it could be a book. Then the problem was there was so much material. But fortunately, I have a really good publisher, and he gave me a really good editor, and she wrestled it all into those 3 volumes. And those three
Okay.
volumes
Well,
are
yeah, so what are the 3 volumes? Yes.
family life, so family culture and family life. And in that one, there is just everything of like studying about what kinds of things you want to do in your family. It's about living the liturgical life. It's about having babies, being open to life. It's about nursing babies. Actually, I have a lot about breastfeeding your babies and how
Oh,
to
wow.
do that I have chapters and chapters that people have told me that they find very helpful. And it's about discipline, having your young children be disciplined. It's about family culture when your children are older. So that's the first volume. The second volume is education. And so in that volume, whether you're homeschooling or send your children to school, it really is about the criteria for choosing, the curriculum, the books, music, art, science, math. It's not like specific. I do have specific suggestions for curriculum, but more than that, it's like, here are the criteria when you're thinking to yourself, well, what are my goals for my child at each stage to learn math? Um, I really do set it out so that once you see what I'm saying, you'll say, okay, now I can evaluate the materials, even if it's as a school, even if it's the school saying, oh, this is what we do for science, you can say, well, what about this? What about that? Aristotle says science is observation. So, and it's going from the whole to the particular. Does this school do that? So I have all of that in that volume. And then the third volume, it is actually kind of backwards because I started the blog with what the third volume is about, which is housekeeping. But everybody told me, no, that needs to be third because the other things really are funneling into it. So the third volume is really like why you have to make your menus, why you have to deal with your laundry, and how. And then how to have a reasonably clean house. So you're not a perfectionist, but you're also not one of those ladies who doesn't know where her slippers are and who's tapping in that little plaque that says, bless this mess.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nope.
No, no. Well, the one thing I was very blessed because my own mom had some type of, and I don't know exactly what type, but she had some type of training in Warsaw, Poland on the domestic arts, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
when she was setting up home when they arrived as immigrants in Canada, it didn't matter that our family didn't have a lot of money. My mother was going to create a beautiful home with the $50 she had, right? Like, so I was blessed because I had her as a mom. Then my sister, there used to be at Ryerson University, which is no longer called Ryerson University, a degreed program in home economics. So then my sister added to the mix her knowledge of, home economics. And so thus making sure when you're, let's say, having a meal that you've got different colors and that you've got napkins. And so, my sister was always trying new recipes. And so when I was in grade I always say I only won 2 awards, and one of them was a pair of scissors in home economics because I was,
That's so great.
yeah, I still have those scissors in the 70s, right? Because I had sewn a couple of dresses and I crocheted. And so your book really, really, your series of books really resonated with me. And I remember my entire life, I kind of yearned to have the seeds that were in my home and my heart and my sister blossom. I also had a aunt who was Parisian. And so every time I went into her house, it was like whole other level, right? Um,
Wow.
but then in Canada, the feminist movement, to me, just basically destroyed homemaking and destroyed, the honor and privilege and dignity of being a homemaker. And so I was like, one of our Mothers Group leaders, Madalena Sperti, she introduced me to your series. And I just, for the longest time, have been wanting to have you here. So I kind of feel like like you were a soul sister, but we didn't know it, or you didn't know it, or um,
Yeah, well, and a lot of women who are, I think we're just about the same age, say to me like, "Oh, well, you wrote the book that I wish I could have written because I do have so much that I learned from my parents, I mean, my mom or whatever, just as you're saying. And so it's good you wrote it and I'll give it to my children.
yeah, exactly.
But but I'm a I feel very humble about it because there's so much, even when you're talking about those experiences that you had, I think there's so much there that, I can't really convey and there's so much richness and I, I wish I could. I mean, it should be a 10-volume book. And I think that all the people like you should have, each one should have her own volume because there is so much richness to this world of homemaking that makes life. I have this favorite quote that I often trot out from the philosopher Roger Scruton when he's talking about beauty. And when I did put it in the book, and my editor was like, "Where does this quote come from?" And it's actually, I had to try to find it. It's actually from a video. So I just kind of, that he made. So I just kind of had to transcribe it. I don't think that he wrote it down anywhere, but in the video, he says that there is the lofty individualistic work of brilliance and genius that we call art and beauty. And that's one thing. But then he said, but then there's the humble, ordinary beauty. And the thing that sticks in my mind is he says, and that beauty reconciles us to the imperfect and makes a home in the world. And that just really struck me that it's the ordinary beauty that the mothers, the homemakers, the sisters, the aunts did that was scorned and lost and by forces that just have a hatred for that kind of thing. It's all about power. And I would love to reclaim all that. So I just try to basically provide the the bare minimum of what you need to just make your home so that it is peaceful, orderly, and follows a higher rhythm so that there can be that wonder that's so unique. Every family has its own unique way of living this out. So for me, it's like the freedom that every family would be able to express its own sense of wonder. But for that, there just has to be a certain there just does have to be a certain order. And I also try to connect the order to something higher. So yeah, it's really, I don't know. And honestly, to tell you the truth, Dorothy, I don't even know how I came to write 3 volumes. It just happened, wasn't easy, but at the same time I look back and I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it really is, such a gift. And one of the mission of our ministry as faith partners with the Archdiocese of Toronto is to, okay, revive the vocation of motherhood, that, motherhood is more than a role, motherhood is more than a task, that it's, to me, it's the element of bringing the divine into the home and I hate the word manifesting because it's such a new age term, but working as hard as we can in cooperation with grace, so that our children can feel the presence of God, they can feel love in tangible ways. And sometimes, the love is a beautiful napkin. Sometimes the love is a beautiful flower. Sometimes the love is, a statue of our Blessed Mother or an icon. And I know that one of the greatest compliments my son uh, gave me when he was just, I think we were 6 or 7, we were in some fancy all-inclusive place. And he says, like, Mom, I really miss home. I really miss home, right? And
Yeah.
and
I think that our children appreciate the things that we think of as just, um, well, this is just my, that even the world looks at as drudgery, but the children are so appreciative. And also, children are very anxious when the stability isn't there. And the stability is really provided by the husband and the wife, their union, their marriage, their sacramental union. And the home is a domestic church. And so, the being the person who tends to that, that just offers everyone so much freedom. And the thing is that if it's a complementarity, because if both are out in the world, fighting the dragons, as I like to say, then there isn't that person in the home. And then that need gets foisted off. It's like it becomes a power struggle. But when the woman accepts that she has something so lofty, she has something that is, I mean, the truth is, I mean, the idea of manifestation is actually deeply Christian, because there are the manifestations that we speak of our Lord, and we just are coming from the time of Epiphany, which was really the manifestation of the incarnation. And
okay,
who
no,
is at
thank
this?
you.
Who
Thank
is at
you.
the center of that? At the center of that is Our Lady, and she is the place. Her body is the place, and then the little home in Bethlehem is the place. The home in Nazareth is the place, and she's a heart of it. And so it's one of those things where you have to shift the way you look at it to appreciate the value and the worth. And instead of thinking, well, everything bigger and better is what I should be chasing after, if you see that um, sometimes things, something can be bigger on the inside than on the outside. I mean, that's the beautiful story of of C.S. Lewis's The Last Battle in Narnia, is the little stable is bigger on the inside than on the outside. Obviously, that's his image of the stable where Jesus was born. And that place is a home. Our Lady made it a home. So yeah, I think that to recover this much needed vocation, what is it that people are longing for? They just need a mother who is supported by her, provider and protector, and who's then free. She's free to provide the beauty, the humble beauty that reconciles us to the things of this world. The world is not our home. We are destined for somewhere else. And this is where we learn about that. So, yeah, there's so much there. I've tried in my little way to just provide the tools, because there are a lot of people. Oh, and then a lot of men read my books too, and they give it to their wives and they read it. And a lot of couples read it out loud together. I've had people tell me, women tell me that like they'll read it out loud, a chapter out loud in the car or what have you. But just to, because what I always say is, there are quite a number of people. I think the number is growing of people who are dissatisfied with the feminist narrative. They get that actually, if you look around, women are really miserable. Everybody's miserable. But then they're always left with the question of, but then what is the alternative and how do I do it? And
And the
so
how do I do it
do it,
is
yes.
yeah,
And so
how.
really like that's my lane, is like, I will tell you how to do it, because
Yeah.
because I am the person who will tell you, like, this is how you launder your dish towels. This is how you set up your laundry, your clothesline outside. This is how you get those piles of laundry off the floor. This is exactly how you make menus that are for your family, not my menus, your menus, but I'm going to show you how to do it. And so, like, I do think somebody had to do it. And I mean, I think one of my very first posts that I wrote was along these lines. It was kind of like, you need to cut the fruit up. You need to take an apple and cut it up into pieces, not just hand everybody an apple. Sure, when you're apple picking or once in a while, you can give them an apple. But if you're just handing your kids apples every day, you're just going to find apple cores under the sofa. You're going to be really disgusted by what you find. You just
Oh,
can't live that way. And
yeah.
Egyptians, my father was Egyptians, and Egyptians, everybody but Americans, cuts their fruit up. And I know that my friends, when my kids were younger, and um, I would just did things, the way my father remarried, and he had a very um, his my stepmother was very particular. I learned a lot from her in her ways of doing things. So I just did what I did, and I would cut the fruit up, and my friends would look at me like, "What are you doing?" And I was kind of like, "Well, I personally do not want to move a cushion and find an apple core."
Yeah,
So anyway.
yeah. No, I just wanted to pause and say hello to Claude. Claude is a mom that used to live in Dubai, but she now lives in Belleville. And Claude, thank you very much for registering for the Dynamic Women of Faith conference. Look forward to seeing you. And then Christina is one of our Catholic Moms Group leaders, and she has 8 children and soon to be, I think, 14 grandchildren. Correct me, Christina, if I'm wrong. How many grandchildren do you have, Leila?
I have 22, and we are expecting the 23rd in July.
Oh my gosh, isn't that
Yeah, yeah. I
beautiful?
have five of my 7 children are married.
No,
So
that's now
th-
I was so excited too to learn that you've started. I was like, this woman's got guts. She started a newsletter, and maybe you've started it a long time ago, and I just noticed it now. But a newsletter called "A School for Housewives." Like it's almost like you can't even use the word housewives these days because if you do, someone will hit you over the head with a stick, right?
but Dorothy, that's me. That's me. Like I'm the kind of person who's like, what? You're saying I can't use that word? Well, here I go. Now I'm using it.
This is what I
And and I even had an email, a very serious email from a reader who said to me, you should really think about calling it the School for Homemakers because housewife is really a word that can be triggering to some people. And I was like, honey,
Yeah.
believe me, I do not choose words lightly. And I spent a lot of time, but actually it's interesting because I have in the introductory post to it's a Substack. So you can also just go to Substack and look at it. It's called
Uh-huh.
The School for Housewives. And I have a link to this is really the background of why I called it that, is that somebody had sent me this little film. I have a link to it in the post. That is called The School of Housewives, which is in Iceland. And it is a school that goes to this day. It's in a very large, like, house, small building. And there are women in Iceland who are our age who remember going to this school. And I think they started in the 50s, and it has been in continuous existence. And they literally teach the women, the young women who go there, but now men go there too, which is just silly. But I think
Yeah.
they had to kind of stay alive, which I give them credit for. But anyway, they teach laying the table, they teach cooking certain things, ironing, making clothes. They teach all the skills of the housewife. It's a 6-week course. I think you go there and to this day, women are going there. Well, anyway, when you watch this film, you're just so captivated because everything is done in this particular way because it's that, Scandinavian background and, like the little embroidery and you iron things in a certain way and this is how you do it and set the table in this very attractive but simple way. It's so appealing. And I just thought, yeah, like everybody loves this film. They're gonna love A School for Housewives. Why not? So I
Yeah,
just
no,
started
and
it.
it's I don't know whether it was 10 years ago, but X number of years ago, I wrote a book for mothers called Motherhood Matters. And I think I was just kind of like searching to find my own voice. And I was hosting a mother's group, and after mother's group, I would write these reflections. And similar to you, those reflections turned into this book called Motherhood Matters. Now, they mine were based mostly on stories. I did not have any how-tos the way that you do. Um, and I remember like some of my kind of friends, quote unquote, from work, like very sarcastically, were like, what are you trying to be? Doris Day, like almost mocking
Yeah.
my little heart that was trying to put into words what seeds had been planted in me for the love of the home, for the love of, and like recently I was watching with my husband, we're watching on Netflix. I think it was called The Secret Houses or something. There are all these houses, and none of it, like they all subscribed to the minimalist philosophy where there were like no photos, no books, they were bare. And I thought, this doesn't look like a home. It looks like a jail cell. Like there's nothing
I
in
know, a high-end jail cell. I call my vibe um curated maximalism because I think that when especially you have children, well, first of all, I think that the Real Housewives are very creative. And so they're always, you know, especially when you have to live frugally because you're living on one income, you always have to be finding some little thing at a thrift store and fixing it up. And you knit and you sew and you do these things. And of course, that means you do have to have a stash of yarn and some thread and some fabric. And certainly when you have children, they come running into you and they're kind of like, Mom, I need to make a costume for this. And so you have to be able to say, well, here's some fabric. Go ahead. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
So I like to think, or even if you say, you want to make something special for, you need to have a pantry full of food. So I do not subscribe to minimalism for sure. But as you indicate, it also is just what are we trying to prove that we're not really living, that we don't really have any impact on the world around us. I mean, we are incarnate beings and it's okay. That's why I call my series about housekeeping the reasonably clean
Yeah.
house,
Yes.
not the perfectly tidy, this sort of nasty neat type of thing. But it also has to have order because nobody can live in chaos and that just makes you it makes you mentally ill. So it's I like everything in this world, it's a balance. Um, and I try to just convey that. And because I have now been married for 46 years and, have seen a lot and I've seen a lot with my friends and family and acquaintances too. And I think I just have a, a feel for just saying, I think your idea, if you're 25 and you're telling me what your idea is, it's like, well, that's good, but I don't think you're taking such and such into consideration.
Leila,
So, and
I don't mean to interrupt you, but like it's
yeah,
2:45, and I have a couple of
yeah,
questions that I want to make sure
sure.
I don't miss.
Go for it.
So, like right now in today's world, you've got a sort of like the mentality exists out there that there is, I would like to stay at home. I would like to be a homemaker. I would love if I, married the zillion-dollar, man that could provide for everything. But there's absolutely no way in our culture in Toronto where a 500 square foot condo costs like eight or $900,000. There's no way that I can stay at home. Like that's one That's one pervasive thought. The other pervasive thought is that my identity is so closely linked to my profession, and I don't think that I could exist without being either like the pharmacist or, and some will say to me too that I have a vocation within my vocation, and so I am a medical doctor, a school teacher. I care for the disabled, and and so I always get these things thrown at me because people will say to me, "Well, Dorothy, you know, you're really pushing the agenda of staying at home." And I said, "Well, I really kind of worked most of my life, and there were pockets of time that I stayed at home. And if I if I have one regret, and I don't want other mothers to have that regret, is that those pockets of time where I was at home, that I didn't feel so guilty and frenetic and thinking that I should be doing something else instead of just relishing and enjoying and being more graceful at the time. There's always like this internal pressure that as I was staying home, that I was doing something wrong. And what I've learned, being, my husband's self-employed, I was self-employed, is that really I've always felt that if you follow the prompts or God's graces, that you will be taken care of. Like, and I keep on trying to say to anyone that will listen is don't make all of your life's decisions based on a spreadsheet, because there are things that are more important than money, and miracles do happen. And I know that often by these younger women, I do get dismissed, right? I get dismissed all the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think I don't pray? I pray. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But who's going to pay the mortgage? God's not going to pay the mortgage, right? So sorry for that little.
No, yeah.
Any thoughts about those things? Yeah.
So there's a couple of different things, and I think it's funny because in a way you kind of bring it, like I don't think anybody really says it, but you have the two things together. And one is, this is my, I have a little quibble with feminism about this. One is that the one narrative is I it's important to my sense of self and my excellence and my, higher calling to work. And then when you try to address that, they pivot to I have to work because otherwise I couldn't afford things. So it's very hard to talk about it because when you talk about one of the things, then the conversation quickly gets shifted, even in the person's mind. Like, supposing you try to focus on what you were touching on, which is that you, I mean, I think what you're saying is if you don't prioritize having a lot of money or having extra money or living in a way that is some level that you've decided on, you can do it. If you, in short, if you accept poverty, what the world calls poverty, which is just, I don't mean living on the street, but just, yeah, we aren't going to go on vacations. We might go camping, but we're not going to go to Disneyland. People going to Disneyland, like you are spending the equivalent of, for me, a year's worth of mortgage.
Yeah, no, it
And I live in a
was never on
5,500
our
square foot house. Like,
agenda.
like I live in a very expensive part of the country. So, but if I try to address that, then they'll pivot to, but I won't have a sense of worth if I don't work. So if I try to address this like higher calling thing, then and say, and if I try to say, well, you freely married, you freely had children, your children do need somebody there. And also women are super stressed out, which I think you also touched on. Then they'll pivot to, well, I have to, or else we won't be able to afford such and such. So I actually find that women in their own mind, before they go into all those things, just deepen within yourself. Instead of going in those directions, the first thing you have to say is, what are my duties? A. The second thing is, B. what would actually make me happy? And I think it's interesting that when people talk about all these things, if we take the one side of it, like the excellence and the higher calling and all of this, they're not saying that it makes them happy. They're saying that it somehow gives them a sense of self-worth or that they feel that they're doing something for society or what have you. And actually I wrote a book called God Has No Grandchildren where I really directly address that claim because it's about Pius XI's encyclical Casti Connubii, which is on chaste marriage. And he has a vision there for marriage that's very beautiful. But one of the things that I talk about in there along the lines of what's in this encyclical is when women say, like, I feel like this isn't what my job, whatever it is to do good for humanity. Like, I'm a doctor, and so think of how many people I'm helping. Well, if you think of it as that our neighborhoods are empty, there's nowhere for children to play. There's a sign on the street, down the street from me, that says, caution, children playing. And when I go by it, I'm like, no, that's a lie. There's no children
Children
playing
playing.
here. And there's no moms in the neighborhood. There's no neighborhood. So there can't really be old people there because if they fell down, who would they call? So they have to go to a nursing home. Anyway, I have had women when I talk about all these things in a very incremental way. I do not lay them all out in one essay, but through my books, I talk about them. And I have so many readers who have written to me. And I have one recently who wrote to me. She's told me she had been reading my things for over 10 years. And she had when she was in medical school, she started reading. And she was married. She now has 4 children. 10 years flash forward, and she said, and I finally have left my practice because I just want to be home. And I finally convinced my husband that this is what we should do. And I know it's going to all turn out right. And what immediately came to my mind is that her skills and her interests will not be wasted because her community will be enriched by what she knows and what she can do. It's up to God to let her, God will show her and it will be fine. The point being that your first question to yourself is not like I don't know, how do I fulfill myself or anything? It's what are my duties? And if we're fobbing our sick children off somewhere, by the way, usually to a mom who is staying at home, so there do need to be moms who are at home. So, like because they're sick or because I can't get the nanny to come because the kids are sick, can you come? Can I drop my children off at your house? Well, why is it that you can drop the children off at her house? It's because she is home. She has a place. And so you also need to be that person who's not so frantic that your children, when they're sick, they have no one really to take care of them. And at the end of the day, it's another woman who's taking care of the kids, who's being paid minimum wage or what have you. God only knows what's going on with your kids when that you drop them off. It's not good. The situation is not good. It's a free choice. Having children is a free choice. And then when you have them, it's a responsibility. And the responsibility is not just to the children, it's to make your home because the world needs those places, the place of safety, love, calmness, not being everything being monetized. And also at the end of the day, who is managing the money? You're going to have to hire somebody else to manage all the money because, and you're still going to be frantic because you're still not going to have enough because here's the news flash. You never have enough money. I
Yeah.
know very rich people who feel they whine about like, oh, we can't have another child because, well, I don't know. I had all those children when we had practically nothing. So it's just, I don't know. I think we need to change the paradigm of how we look at it and have priorities.
Yeah, and I remember, I forget what year it was, but I was hosting a birthday party, a backyard birthday party for one of my kids in the backyard. And I had like, you have those kind of meltdown crazy moments. I thought, what the heck is going on here? I hired someone to make the food. I hired someone to clean the house. I hired someone to make the party favors. And then I was like, who the hell am I in the middle of all of this? And like, and then I thought to myself, well, what am I teaching my kids? That I need someone to clean
Oh,
the house, that I need someone, and and so like I thought to myself, okay, I'm firing everyone. Firing, you know? Because it's just brokering out so much now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the house is not as clean as it was when we did have hired help. But I do.
I mean, if you can afford a cleaning lady, go for it. But the thing is, I mean, I saw one fabulous woman who has some, is CEO of something and has a lot of kids and everything, and she said, I outsource everything except the sex. And I was like, that's a bit of a red flag to me. Be careful.
Well, and I'm always like I always have to be careful because my sometimes I always pray that the Lord helps me guard my tongue because I can be sometimes I can be painful in some of the things I say, but one thing I often say is that, well, and I've never said it publicly, but maybe today's the day, I don't know. But, we need to be careful how much we outsource. And would we say to our husbands, I don't have time to be your wife. So 5 days a week from 8 till 7, you're going to hire someone else to be your wife because I can't handle it.
Well, for real. Okay, so Dorothy, here's something that I will assure you that no feminist has ever said. What makes my husband happy? And all I would say is that for all the moms out there, just every once in a while in your prayer, just say, what would make him happy? There are things that he could never say. He could never in a million years say to you, what makes me happy is coming home and you're there. And you smile at me, even if you're handing me the baby, which I certainly did. Like, this baby has been crying all day long. You need to take him. Um, and I don't think I smiled. And I wish that I had had somebody to say to me, he really does want to come home and see you. And that is what makes him happy. And I'm here at the other end where I have friends who are divorced. Even had a lot of kids. They were even daily communicants. They're divorced. We have to have a serious conversation with ourselves. How did that happen? There's a lot of blame to go around to everyone, don't get me wrong. But we all have to be trying to make each other happy in the way that we want to be made happy. And women do have a way of saying, this is what will make me happy. We're okay with saying that. Men do not say that. They would not say it.
No, it's and this could be an entire other interview, which we won't get into today, but uh, I guess my mother's home was bombed when she was 13 in Warsaw as part of World War II, right?
Yeah,
And so she talked about suffering a lot. And she would say that like you don't understand what it means to suffer. And she
right.
often gave me the sort of kind of quote unquote lecture, like, pull up your big girl pants and, marriage isn't easy and being a mom isn't easy. And we're not taught as wives and mothers that a part of the deal is suffering, right? And so like if you have to be up 3, 4, 5, 6 times a night because the baby's not sleeping and it's not latching, well, you don't put a bottle in its mouth because it's hard, right?
Right.
And I remember when,
Right.
I'm going to look up the nursing because when my daughter started to nurse, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never talked to her about nursing. I never,
I know.
what do I have
I
done
know.
that
I know.
to her?
And the truth is, I can also say here at the other end is that when I look back and I see the suffering that we went through, for instance, looking out the window and seeing a guy get out of a car and put an auction sign on the back of his car, like he's going to now auction off our house. I mean, things like that. Realizing when I look back and thinking, I actually learned so much. We had got so much grace from getting through those times together. Our children learned so much about how to have fun with very little. I mean, we could have long conversations about that. I did put a lot of that in the book. Um, you learn so much. Life is not what you think it is. It's not about making yourself more and more comfortable. It's about seeing your duties, doing them cheerfully, living for others, but most of all for women, making a place. I actually, contrary to what people may think after all this conversation, you will not find the term stay-at-home mom in my books or on my blogs. It's not it's not that I'm saying that. I am saying that even the women I know who were like, I have a very good friend who was a chemist all her life. She was, a professional, but she always spoke of the value of the mother in the home. She didn't denigrate it. And she knew that she owed a lot to her own mother. And that's the thing is to say, yes, maybe there are some women who do have some sort of higher calling, although very often, if you could get them to sit and talk to you, and I have talked to them intimately, they will also say, I missed out on a lot. And there were some things that I do regret. However, this life is full of regrets. So it's up to you in your own conscience, but to know that there is something deep and valuable, something irreplaceable about making a home. I'm not saying stay at home mom. I'm just saying make your home, do it well, do it with love. And
And
that,
so, lady, the Summa Domestica, and if you wanted some, counsel in shorter spurts, because this is a lot of information, is I encourage you to visit Leila's blog, Like Mother, Like Daughter, and her Substack School for Housewives. A lot of women too will say, "Oh, you're all about the stay-at-home mom." And I'm like, no, no, no. You could be staying at home and not cleaning it and not making any meals, and you could stay at
sure.
home going to play bingo and have chaos at home. It's not about being just because, and I also think it depends on temperament and fortitude. Like I could not be the mother that I wanted to be and get up at 6:30 in the morning and drop my kids off at daycare, then come. I would be a basket case. I just did not have the fortitude and the strength to be that kind of woman.
I totally agree. And I never wanted to do that. But I will say that in the book, I give all the ways of getting out of that rat race, all the ways. So I teach you how to, I teach you how to afford the things. And on my blog, if you see all the pictures in my house, because I take a lot of pictures, everything in my house is either thrifted or found in the side of the road. And people open my blog and they're like, oh, your house is so beautiful, this, that, the other. Well, it can be done on very little.
Yeah, and I say like I have my mother's dining room hutch and dining. I
Yeah.
From when we came to Poland in 1962, we bought when we came from Poland and we bought, antique furniture on Queen Street. I still
Yeah.
have it in my home.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's 3:01 and I kind of promised that I'd respect the 1 hour limit. We've got a comment here from Laura.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Leila. You have been an auntie, big sister to me through your blog on my homemaking and homeschooling journey. And my oldest is now 15. So,
Oh,
so
that's wonderful.
oh,
Yeah. Well, my husband just went to get my granddaughter. So if anybody has any question, I probably have 10 more minutes to
okay, so
answer.
if anyone has any questions, why don't we, pop them up in the chat box now? I'm just going to take a look at my questions. No, I think we've covered everything too that was on my questions, but I wanted to just publicly too thank you for creating this because I think a lot of women are a bit perplexed, like, okay, well, how do you do this? Now, you talk about the duties of motherhood. I know that Father Rippenberger had like an extensive list of duties of a mother. And then, of course, our Catholic Catechism also has duties of parents. Do you have in your blog or in your book, like, what would the duties of a housewife be? Like, do you have those duties?
Sure, I don't have a list, but I do have I do talk about especially the moral education of the child. There's a whole section in the volume on education. And I think that, I try to do everything incrementally in little bits so that it's not all dumped on you at once. And I think when you read that, you'll realize, yeah, there's actually so much I have to do. Pius the 11th, in that encyclical I was speaking of, is very clear about the way the more mother forms the moral life of her children and how important that is and how we cannot have a good society without that. And whenever we talk about what's going on, what is the first thing we say to each other? We say, how were those people raised? Right? Like, where was their mother? Where was their father in the background? The father is kept tied to the home by the love of the mother. That's what keeps him involved. And for when he's really needed, like when the kids are 16 and they're headed out the door and the mother is getting very frantic, and the father just in his deep voice says, son, we're not gonna do bail. That is all because of the mother's faithfulness, the parents' rosaries, all of those things. The mother has to be at the heart of that. Literally, I would say the society rises or falls on whether the mother has fulfilled her duties, and everything flows from that. So yeah, I talk about all those things in the books for sure.
And so Christina here says, I love how Leila recognizes that grandmas and grandpas help their children with grandchildren, right? Which
Oh
is
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
well, because
sure.
that because now if you have like the grandmother that's working and the mother's that working and the aunt is working, the only thing a mom often has left is her phone, right? Because
I
mom's
know.
working, grandma's working, auntie's working. So let me find out what Chat GPT thinks. Let me find out. Like, that's another conversation to have, right?
I know. Well, and I'm very grateful that my children, all my married children, are all very committed to mom being the center of the home. And it's so funny because my daughter had emailed me to say, because her daughter goes to school right up the street from me, and she said, she's ready to spend the night with you so that she can come and help you take down your Christmas decorations. So I said, sure, we'll pick her up and she can help me, and then we'll give her supper and probably some treats, and she can spend the night, and we'll drop her off in the morning. But I really pity them, the grandmothers who are now taking care of toddlers. I'm a pretty young grandmother, considering that my oldest grandchild is 15. And I would be very worn out if, I mean, I do take care of them at times, but if it was a daily thing, it just physically would be too much for me. And I feel like these grandmothers are kind of like being really uh, burdened by their daughters who are kind of like, well, now you have to do this. Well, really, like this should be the time that I can, yeah, take the kids for a little treat or take them off your hands for a little bit.
For a couple of
But it
hours.
should,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But not
yeah, or
but
like
not for
even they're having a baby, I can take them for the weekend. But the idea that now, oh, it's my job to raise these children too, like, I mean, sure, if there was some terrible tragedy or something, but that should not be the normal way of looking at it. But I do see on social media now, it is a trend to imply overtly or just kind of like very subtly that, oh, the grandmother should be the one who steps in and runs everything, although also does not voice her opinion. And I am here to reject all of that. No, you can voice your
This is
opinion. You can voice your opinion and also, no, honey, you are going to stay home and take care of your own children. They need you. They want you. They want their grandmother to be warm and cuddly every once in a while and read them a book and take them for a special treat somewhere out to dinner or what have you. Now we can do that. We never did that when we couldn't afford to go out for dinner ever when our kids were
Well, this
little.
is yeah, exactly it. Growing up.
But now we can, because yeah, guess what? Kids are really expensive. What they say is true. Um, but we sacrificed and we did it, and now we're reaping the benefits. But it's not, it's they have it backwards. But then if I see them doing something that I disapprove of, sure, I mean I give them their freedom and they are making their own decisions, but I will say, no, 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 that's not how we do it. So, or honey, maybe you should think about whether is you sure you want to do it this way? Or here's how I did it. It's okay to voice your opinion.
Yes, yeah, and it's and the one thing I keep on saying to any young mom, because we've helped start Catholic moms groups across the Archdiocese of Toronto, and so I very often will go visit the groups and sometimes give short reflections. And I'm really just encouraging moms to like reach out to other good, wholesome Catholic moms rather than reaching out to moms on TikTok, for
Oh
example,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It,
Though that none of that advice and whatever Facebook group you're in, if it's not like how to make butter or the one I like is steam locomotives, tells you when a steam locomotive is coming down because my one of my grandsons loves steam locomotives. All the other ones, get out of them because they will destroy your marriage and wreck your relationship with your
well,
children. They
I'm
are no
always so
good.
surprised how much women just pour completely openly about their entire personal lives to a
Oh
group of
yeah.
3,000 moms that they don't
Or
know. I'm like, what?
whoever. And the worst person, the person with the most bitterness is going to be the one who will be the most vocal. And in on my blog and in my book, I tell you how to use social media to find your in-person friends.
Mhm.
And that is very important. And I have a whole thing laid out of how to go about getting your kindred spirits and your friends around you. And they don't have to be like your very best friends, but they're your community for the purpose of when your children are teenagers and they need a peer group.
Yeah,
It's building a community and it goes beyond the book club. The book club is nice, but you need to expand it to be that you're helping each other, that you're bringing each
yes,
other dinners, that you
yes.
are offering to take care of the kids while the mom has to go to her doctor's appointment, and you're leading the way for helping for being that community for each other
Yeah,
because it's not going to work to be a mom devoted to home with no friends.
yes,
It's not
no,
gonna, you'll be too lonely.
no, 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 you will be. And um, for me, when I started a Catholic moms group, and it was a big game changer for me, a huge game changer, because it's like all of a sudden you've got women praying for you. All of a sudden you've got women, oh, my mother's passed
Right.
away, coming to the funeral, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to close. I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to look up Leila Lawler. And if you can invest in this beautiful series to do so,
Thank you.
and check out her school for uh, it's
Housewives.
housewives. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I got it right. And also, if you're ever thinking of starting a Catholic moms group, that's our lane. I always say that we've helped hundreds of parishes start Catholic moms groups, and they're
Wonderful.
based. And we are always passing new resources to our Catholic moms group leaders. And one of our moms group leaders said, "Oh, you should get this whole series for each Catholic moms group." And I'm like, okay, well, let's think about that one. But anyway, so thank you very much, Leila. Thank you for
Thank you. Thanks for everyone
And thank you
joining.
for investing so much time and energy.
Oh,
Because the last thing is, I remember once going to a university fair with my husband, and I said, "Where is there a booth for women that want to be housewives? Where's that booth? I want that booth here because we're not even creating it as an option for women anymore."
well,
Right?
Dorothy, that's why I left college. I was in college and I had to declare my major. And I looked at the list and I said, well, I just want to be a mom. It's not on the list. So,
Yeah.
so I looked at my husband and I said, I need to not do this anymore.
Yeah.
So
No,
anyway,
so
but I
thank you.
managed it nonetheless. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I want to ask anyone here, if you've got the time, is anyone here able to pray a full rosary for Layla and her intention
Oh,
and her work as a thank you? Like, I'll be the first one that offers that full rosary today for you. Is there
thank
anyone
you.
here that has the time to do that, to pray a full rosary in thanksgiving for? The Summa Domestica and for Layla. Let's see if any.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, okay. Praying a rosary. Christina Zasowski, one of our Mother's Group leaders, is going to be praying a full
Oh,
rosary for you. So I'll pray a full rosary. Christina will pray a full rosary. Martha will pray a full rosary. Laura will pray a full rosary. So you've got,
oh, thank you.
you've
Well,
got.
I will offer my rosary tonight up for all of you when I pray with my husband and my granddaughter. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you. And
God bless.
you've encouraged us, and we hope we've. Oh, wait, someone's raised their hand. Is there a
Oh,
comment? Thank you, thank you. Let me just see the raised hand. Any questions? No. Okay, okay. So
all right.
thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye
Bye
now.
bye.